Rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Ji Ayanu, Pakhair Agale, Ni Hao, Chunashumme, Washmale, Ohio Gazaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Boyor, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasal, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho Gracias, Fabio, Bali Kere Aya, Hoj Galdin, and Ayosayo, Huya Mora, Chivato, Chi Haljud, Kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajar, Assalamu alaikum, how are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. Since it's summer vacations going on and kids are at the home enjoying, playing, and I think parents, especially mothers, are a bit irritated by their noises and whatnot. So since we had a debate, I remember that we had a debate in our show in which we talked about that you were against the concept of kids going to the summer school.
Yeah.
And do you still maintain that line of inquiry?
Yes, I have maintained that, alhamdulillah. Instead,
Right.
you know what I did, so, okay. For everybody who's out there, I'm not against the idea that the kids really need to, learn kind of or probably
Right.
preamp things a little bit. For example, so if my daughter is supposed to go into 5th grade
Right.
after summer vacation, so her studying 5th grade mathematics or science is something which I would always kind of want my
Right.
kids to do,
Right.
but for them to go to summer camp and then do the same drill which they were doing in their
Yes.
schools was something which I was against, and which is why, in addition to that, what I certainly wanted to kind of speak about was that, so then what I did, that I took them to Lahore, I took them to Murray, I took them to, all of those places which they wanted to see and they have never been to. So I thought that this was a better idea. So going to Khanpur Dam, I mean, there have been places that we've been to and they have loved every bit of it. So now every time I'm sitting down with my daughter, so imagine that she's only 3.5 now.
Mashallah.
And she kind of says, hey, you know what, we did it in Lahore. Hey, you know what, we did it in Murray. So I think that was more of a learning experience, and as parents got more time to spend with them, and I think that was fabulous. So okay, this is my take. What about you?
I think so. I mean, I don't have kids, so I really don't have a very strong opinion regarding that. And I think that opinion really changes when it is coming from a parent or parental side in the first place. But Shahzad, since you talked about...
हमने असल में पढ़ाई का ज़्यादा शौक भी नहीं था.
Okay, so since you talked about...
Which I have realized that होना चाहिए था.
So since I realized that you're talking about traveling and going to the places and very exotic places like Murray and like Khanpur Dam, where there is a different sort of tourism. But when we talk about international tourism, so there's this one particular country which I really want to explore, and I want to go there, and that is the China, because China has a huge old civilizational value, and we have been connected by the bonds of those civilizations, and it is one of the oldest civilization in the first place, and also it is a very huge country. And matter of the fact is, did you know that China has the highest rate of the borders with the number of countries in the world, right? So when we talk about China-Pakistan friendship, and obviously Vice Premier of the China, he's also coming here. He's on the official visit, and we are celebrating the 10 decades of the China-Pakistan.
Our decade and 10 years of, and
Yes.
inshallah, yes, in years to come, decades of China-Pakistan economic corridor. And how, because I would certainly want to put it this way, Pak Chin Dosti Wong Swai, so everybody knows it.
Right.
And that's certainly the reason which has actually pushed us to kind of, say our highs and hellos in Chinese, which is ni hao, or probably if you are to actually ask somebody, if I'm not wrong, ladies and gentlemen, it means han hao nina.
Oh, wonderful. You read that. But I think we also need to talk about it, because last year when Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif went to China, he wrote an article and he described China-Pakistan friendship, and I would really want to recount his words, because he said that there are 3 types of good friends. One that is direct and honest, one that is trustworthy, dependable and generous when you need help, and one that is knowledgeable and talented to guide you and show you what you can't see. And China-Pakistan friendship fulfill all of these 3 attributes. And Pakistan in the Chinese language is known as Ba Tai, or Pakistan is called the iron brother or iron friend of the China in the first place. So when we talk about Pakistan-China friendship, we would like to introduce our guest, and we would like to carry forward or unfold the conversation which we are going to have. So we are very lucky that we have been joined by Dr. Talat Shabir, who happens to be Director of Pakistan-China Study Center, ISSI. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum.
It's
Thank you very
wonderful
much
to
for
have you
having
over
me
here.
over.
Thank you so much for taking out time. So, sir, just to get started with, I think we would want you to, because we got in 46, 47 different countries, to kind of explain what has happened in the last 10 years and how it has contributed towards Pakistan and how Pakistan has contributed towards Chinese development.
Right. Thank you very much for having me for this very important topic today, because we have a very senior official from China in Islamabad and Deputy Premier, and who is here to celebrate with us
True.
the 10 years of
CPEC.
CPEC celebrations. Now, when looking back, 10 years back, when we started with the idea of CPEC, though it was a part of Belt and Road Initiative of China, which is a global project, but we two countries focused on China-Pakistan economic corridor, which had four components. And those four components were very important in order for Pakistan to kickstart its economic development in our country. Now, the very important components were energy, because we were energy starved country in 2013, 2014. And then for the logistics that were required for economy to kickstart logistics and infrastructure was very important. So the first two components that CPEC was to work on were infrastructure and energy. So we are over with it, and I think more than 80% have worked on these two projects. The two phases has completed. Now we are into second phase, which is industrialization. And I, as a CPEC watcher, expect a lot from this phase, because we expect relocation of Chinese industry to Pakistan. We expect revival of Pakistani industry in very near future. We expect a lot of exports to grow for Pakistan, and we expect a lot of jobs to be created
Right, right.
because of this
Right.
phase.
Dr. Saab, thank you so
So,
much for brilliantly putting it out there. But when we talk about BRI and when we talk about globalization, obviously BRI is a step led by the Chinese for this globalization. And we have seen that previously globalization has been led by the very Western-centric model. And CPEC is one of the flagship project of the BRI Belt and Road Initiative in the first place. So where do you see Pakistan's contribution in this entire calculus of globalization led by the China in the form of the BRI and the CPEC's importance in it?
Sure.
you see, when we look at BRI, you see Chinese call it, though they also launched initiatives after that, and I'll come on that a little later. But they called CPEC as a flagship project as a pilot project of Belt and Road Initiative. And there's a common concept in the scholars among scholars on Belt and Road Initiative, that CPEC is basically a hinge between the road and belt that China envisaged for this connectivity project, that they thought it would be connecting the entire world, more than 70% of the world. And when we see that nearly 70 countries have directly or indirectly signed some of the documents and some of the projects with China under the umbrella of Belt and Road Initiative. Belt and Road Initiative is a huge project. It's a global ambitious venture. The Westerns, they call it. I think this is a project of great connectivity, where China expects developing world. When we look at the regions,
Yes.
it would be catering for European region, Africa, and whole of Asia.
That's
So
true.
it's a huge project. So CPEC is the pilot project, though many people think success of CPEC will actually be the success of Belt and Road Initiative. So that is the importance that China also attaches with this
And Doctor,
this
that's
project.
exactly where I wanted this conversation to head, and it's because of the fact that if you go back to 2013, it was certainly the, under the initiatives of the former Premier Mia Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif Saab, that, that we certainly saw that, Pakistan had a lot of focus primarily on infrastructure development so that we can contribute to the region. Now, in addition to that, how do you think that, when we say that it's going to help the Asian region or the European region, how do you think that CPEC and the Belt and Road Initiative will allow access to Pakistan that we can contribute in terms of exports or any other technological interventions if they are important, necessary for the development of the country?
You see, when we look at the components of CPEC, for example, industrialization, and before analyzing this aspect, we have to see that what China is actually doing in China. China has done huge progress in artificial intelligence, technology, in the building sectors. They are building bridges.
Almost in all facets of life, probably.
True.
Yeah, so this is a wholesome view. We have to look at this from wholesome perspective. And if we are lucky country that we are near China, and China and Pakistan have a relationship of trust and mutual cooperation. It's not transactional relationship. And I think the phrase that is very common in Pakistan, that we have to learn from China is expertise. We have to, and Chinese are ready to give out their expertise to Pakistan, and we can benefit from it. Now, look at the progress that China has made in last 40 years, and look at how they actually take development model. It is something which is unprecedented.
True.
And I recently visited China, and I say, if you go to China, after 6 months you'll find different China. So they are actually on speedy development, that they changing landscape of every city and every countryside they are actually planning to develop in China. Now Pakistan stands to benefit from what? As I said, technology. For example, take the area of agriculture. The China has I think made huge progress in various expertise and tools and scientific methods that they apply to agriculture. Now, we are agrarian economy. We are an agriculture country. 70% of our population still, it lives in the villages, and they're dependent on agriculture. How you can just imagine how hugely we can benefit from Chinese expertise of agriculture alone. So I think we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize as to where we can take benefit of it. And Chinese are readily, doing it. Really doing for.
And thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for saying that. I'm very sorry that I'm interjecting. Thank you so much for saying that we certainly need to prioritize in what areas we can certainly adopt a few expertise of theirs, to make sure that that we kind of come on that balance of payment that we've been talking about. Because you said that the second phase of China-Pakistan economic corridor happens to be industrialization, and we do have economic zones, but we do not see those industries coming over here so that we can actually have that balance of payment because of trade. And how do you think that it's going to take a little longer than what we amped, or do you think that things are underway and inshallah soon we will see massive industrialization within the economic zones which are built on the Belt and Road Initiative?
I don't want to be very critical today because I am in a mood of celebrating 10 years of CPEC. But
you yourself said that we need to prioritize, right?
Yes, but we must celebrate. We must celebrate success of CPEC, but we must do serious introspection of why we have not been able to do what was actually required by this venture. Now, I think there's a lot actually relates to the capacity building of our people,
wonderful,
our institutions who are related to CPEC. So, besides celebrations, I'm sure since I'm a CPEC watcher, I know there's a huge progress on this front. But I think in the last 10 years we could have achieved much more than what we have done. So, what is introspection be? Targeted at? We must see why our institutions have lack capacity to handle such a big project. Why we have not been able to take advantage of Chinese expertise and Chinese cooperation to build our capacity of our institutions. Why have we not been able to ensure that there's enough skilled labor to carry out these projects? why we must do introspection as to why we have not been able to take benefit of this huge historic opportunity that our country has. And I think even if we start today, the people talk of timeline that it's 2030 and it's just nearby and we are, much short of it. No, I think if your direction is right, if you're going towards the right direction, so there can be time, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years, time. But if your direction is right, I think you can be there where you want to. But you need to do serious introspection, and you need to do what is expected of this great project, and what Chinese expectations are. Chinese are, I think, we are also living much short of what China expects from Pakistan.
Right. Right. Thank you so much for so brilliantly putting it there that we need to do a lot of introspection and we need to carefully weigh where our interests are. And obviously, Chinese Vice Premier coming to Pakistan and expressing his strong leadership position on the celebrating the decade of the China-Pakistan economic corridor and the position surrounding it. Certainly, we need such sort of initiative. And also, Shahzad, so since there was a conversation going on and there is a talk about the industrialization, which is the second phase of the CPEC. And when we talk about the industrialization, Pakistan has this one benefit, and I would say being a third world country is cheap labor, which is really hard to find by, especially in the countries, in the Western countries, in the developing countries. So there's a lot of opportunity which I see here and which we can capitalize in the first place. So in order to develop further such conversation on the cheap labor and how our youth can benefit from that, and especially industrialization is the road towards the economic progress. We are very glad that we have been joined by Hafiz Ahsan Ahmed Khokar Sahab, who happens to be a senior analyst. Assalamu alaikum and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Wonderful to have you on this occasion. It feels wonderful, to have the Chinese Vice Premier over here inside Pakistan, alhamdulillah. And alongside Khokar Sahab, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a former diplomat in China. He served himself. He happens to be an analyst. Happens to be Professor Zamir Awan Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum salam.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's a wonderful day, and we have had a wonderful decade of Pakistan-China partnership, and we have spoken about it. We have spoken about the Belt and Road Initiative. We have spoken about China-Pakistan economic corridor and the benefits of it. And Dr. Saab very rightfully mentioned that we really need to kind of look into ourselves and make sure that we prioritize accordingly. But now, if we are to kind of talk about it more holistically, Professor Saab, I'll start the conversation with you. That for all of those areas which we have invested, or China has invested, and China has been generous enough of making sure that they're going to give us billions of dollars to invest in energy, transport. Do you think that we have rightfully made sure that those investments are going to go to those areas and that we are reaping benefits of it as of now? Let's just discuss that in the first place.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me start with this one. I was in China serving as a diplomat from 2010 till 2016.
Wonderful.
And CPEC was launched in 2013.
Yes.
So I have all the evidence.
Right
information from since beginning. CPEC was our priority, and the Chinese has helped Pakistan. Most of the project were with the mutual consent initiated. Pakistan at that time was shortage of electricity, and at that time the Prime Minister of Pakistan has promised during his election campaign that he will overcome the energy crisis.
And he was able to fix it in 2 years, 3 years time.
And Alhamdulillah, half of our demand is almost met through the CPEC projects. And still there are some CPEC projects, the energy projects, power projects are under execution, and few are in the pipeline. And we hope that after completion of all energy projects, Pakistan will not only fulfill its own demand, domestic demand, but it will be surplus, and we will be able to export to Afghanistan and some other neighboring countries.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. However, there is always space for improvement. We need to fix our priorities in a much better way. We need to conceive the CPEC well, and then negotiate with the Chinese very well and execute very well, and of course the result will be excellent.
Right, right. So, Kokar Saab, coming to you, since we talked about cheap labor and especially in the era of the decoupling which is going on, and since there's a huge opportunity for Pakistan in order to invest themselves or invest ourselves in the era of the decoupling going on. So, how do you see this entire scenario going on, especially when the China does need support in the form of when the decoupling is happening?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. The journey starts from 1950,
Yes.
and it is going on. Pakistan was the first Islamic country who recognized China, and among three first countries of the world who recognized the China. And then we made the diplomatic relationship in 1951, and our Prime Minister went on 1956, and we signed a friendship pact with the China. And we can divide these relations into three areas. One is to recognize and understand each other, and we did it. We resolved our issues with the border issues, the air issues in 1963. We signed an agreement. Then the second phase was started, and the second phase was started the strategic relations. We started from 1964, China helped in 1965 war, China helped in 1971, and then we supported China in 1970 from 71 and 72, and the President Nixon was able to visit the China. So we opened up the window of the Chinas to the West, and that shows the strategic relationship with depth that all the Western countries, they relied on China. Then the third phase started from the 90s to onward. And Shahzad, we must give the credit to all the governments whosoever in Pakistan since 1956 to onward. Every leadership they recognize the importance of the relationship with China, start from Sohrawardi, and then from the General Ayub, then to come on the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And the first project initially was in 1958 when we started on Silk Road, Shahra Krakrum, and then the credit goes to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The Chashma Par project, they started over there. Then General Ziaul Haq was there. Then General Musharraf had played a very big role to bring the Vice President, Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of the China, and they inaugurated the Gawadars. Then the credit goes to President Zardari. He did 21 visits, and of course the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. In that year 2013, and this is the month of the celebration, that 5th of July, there was a memorandum of understanding signed between the Pakistan and China on the CPEC. And then 2015, when the Xi Jinping president came to Pakistan, we signed 51 agreements over here, and that was the beginning. So this is a checkered history between the Pakistan and China. And if we analyze from the CPEC perspective, that the CPEC actually started in 2015, and if we minus the 2 years of the COVID, which is 20 and 21 in that area, so we have a 7 to 8 years. Now, if we look at the progress of the CPEC in Pakistan on the positive side on this area, that initially it was a 46 billion project, increased to 62 billion projects, now plus 10 billion projects for the ML1 and other infrastructure project. Now we have invested 25 billion US dollars, like the Pakistani style of governance in Pakistan. And then we almost did the infrastructure projects in Pakistan, the energy projects. We are going to inaugurate the Gawadar International Airports. It is another big milestone. We build more than 500 kilometers the motorways in Pakistan. We made the metro train in Lahore under the leadership of the current Prime Minister of Pakistan. We did it the East-West Way Road in Gawadar, and we have done so many things. So the next phase is the very important. The important phase is the economic zones, and another area, the technology transfer in the agriculture, the IT area, and simultaneously it is also important that we have to fix and change our the export-oriented position from the West to the China as well. This is another area to be looked into.
And Hafizam, where I mentioned that obviously the balance of payments gap really needs to kind of shorten. Obviously, so Pakistan and China to agree that, that they will be trading in between that too in their own local currencies. I think that's something that...
The swapping.
Yes, obviously was the way forward. But now, sir, I'll move on to you, Professor Zamir Awan Saab. Now, what I would want to ask you is that, that since Dr. Saab has mentioned about introspect and how we really need to look after and prioritize. Okay, it's wonderful. Kokar Saab very beautifully has established that, for all of those projects we have undertaken successfully, Alhamdulillah. That's quite a lot that we have achieved in 7 to 8 years. Now, when we speak of such a project, for example, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, maybe Gwadar Port, maybe the Belt and Road Initiative, don't you think that we certainly geographically are located in a region where a lot of other countries might not have been happy with the progress Pakistan has made and the kind of relationship we have always enjoyed with our brethren country China? And do you think that there have been implications of that too within that particular region, which is why we certainly need to kind of go back, look at it again, and then kind of come up with a revamped model?
The spoilers, yes.
I believe that Pakistan is located in a very strategic location. We are on the junction of, and we have the capability to connect
True.
Central Asia, East Asia, South Asia with Europe, Africa and the rest of the world.
True.
And CPEC is basically aimed to expand these connections and these connectivities. Definitely through Afghanistan, we have the easy access to the Central Asia. They are the landlocked countries, and the Gwadar is the unique port which is the closest to them, and it is the warm water port.
Yes.
In some of the Western world, some of the ports are very cold and frozen, and in winter there is a lot of resistance or hurdles, but Gwadar or Karachi port are open throughout the years and the warm waters. So strategically we are very important position, and there are of course certainly implications. And
how do we avert those implications? Now that's what the question is. How do we make sure that
Yes.
as the government of Pakistan, we certainly understand in the first place that how our neighboring countries unfortunately might not really be happy with this developing model of Pakistan.
That's true.
And then how do we make sure that that we have strategies in place to avert
Yes.
such implications?
I will share with you the Chinese point of view.
Sure.
The China has focused on its own internal developments for 40 years. Once China has reached a stage when it has surpassed the stage when any other country can coerce or pressurize China, now they can announce everything, or they can share, or they can play the global.
So first prepare yourself 100%.
Pakistan need to get out of the Twitter and
Model.
the game changer and the big words. We need to focus only on our
Actions.
internal actions.
Wonderful.
We should develop our country, we should focus on our internal issues, and we should reach a stage where we can confront or we can talk to the rest of the world eye to eye.
Inshallah.
Right, and that's very wonderful, and thank you, Shahzad, so much for asking this question, and especially with regards to spoilers. And obviously there are spoilers there in every country, in every project, and when I talk about it. But Hafiz Saab, now coming back to you, and we really want to ask you about how do you see China's position as a greater global power in the first place, and its position as one of the greatest civilization and oldest civilization, where it wants to resurrect the ancient Silk Route, right? So this was the Belt and Road Initiative is one of such project, and CPEC is the flagship project of the BRI, right? And how do you see Pakistan playing into this entire equation in the first place?
Hajra, the important thing is that the Pakistan and the China, they are the neighbors.
Yes.
We understand each other, and we are the time tested friend. So this is the one area. The second area is China also needs Pakistan because of its geography and because of its a neighbor. Because China has some confrontation with India, and they have fought a war with India in 1962, but Pakistan has another area which the China can trust, and this relationship is continuing since 1962 and onwards. So here the China needs to have a smallest route and distance from Pakistan to the Indian Oceans.
Yes.
If they go by the Malacca side, they will have more than the 2,000 kilometers.
That's
But
true.
here they have the less the distance, and there is another issue which is important. The China also needs the
Clear route, right?
the clear route
Yes.
in both in terms of the energy
Huh.
and in terms of the logistics, because the China is one of the biggest the exporting country in the world. So they need a road where they can easily go to export their side. They also develop there the southern side, and it is the northern side of the Pakistan. So
Right.
it is a win-win situation for both the Pakistan and China. And the other area is if we go by the BRI, it is another ambitious project of the China. So if you start a BRI, you need Pakistan, because you have to go to the Pakistan and then go on. That's why the China is concentrating on CPEC projects in Pakistan, and they are pledging more and more. And there is no issue with the balance of the payments yet, because there are certain negotiations and the China is ruling over it. But the most important thing, we need to have a successful CPEC project in Pakistan, that we can market to the Gulf countries and the Asian countries. And now there is a seriousness and the resolve is there. The Chinese Vice Prime Minister, he is there. He is a right person. He has been in the NDRC for the 5 years. He knows the initiative of the BRI, and he knows the CPEC progress and way forward over it. And he is the economist by profession, as looking forward the international scenario of the investment. So there is a positivity oversight. And the second important thing is that for the last 1 year, there is a strong resolution by the present government. The Prime Minister has visited China and interacted. There has been in the 12th of July, the JCC meeting, we reviewed certain projects over there. So there is a hope. And the hope is in a way that the government has established another the forum in Pakistan, which was the requirement, that the SIFC, Special Investment Facilitation Council, this is the most important, and that will trigger to the CPEC project another 4 identified areas.
And you know, that's exactly why, you know, for people who actually happen to be lawyers themselves, ladies and gentlemen, remember everything, because they remember each and every case which has taken, you know, probably which has been a part of our history, and you know, that's what they use as a reference. But we need to head out towards a short break. While we are heading out towards a short break, there's one more question. And that question is that obviously, you know, for a country where the budding population happens to be 60% of youngsters, I think such economic zones, such, you know, trained and skilled labor is certainly going to help. And human resource itself happens to be a gold mine over here in Pakistan. While we talk about people who are jobless, while we talk about people who have a lot of education to themselves but still certainly cannot land themselves into a job, I think we certainly need to focus on having skilled labor, more vocational training, and making sure that we are preparing for the future. With that, we're heading out towards a short break. Once you'll come back, I think that's the question for Khokhar Saab and our senior analyst over here. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying tuned. And very quickly reverting back to, in fact, reverting to what I actually mentioned before heading out towards a short break. And that is that we, as Pakistanis, sit on a gold mine, Haja, you know, and human resource, alhamdulillah, you know, we have lots of it. We certainly do not believe in family planning, and no matter what happens, alhamdulillah. We happen to be 7 siblings in just one household. We will go, so obviously, and the figures are going up. So, and certainly, you know, for a country which is rich in human resources, something that we could have contemplated on a long time ago, but unfortunately we couldn't. Now, if I am to go to Karachi, and if I'm going to ask somebody who lives in Peshawar that which way do you think that I need to go to Karachi from, you know, that's certainly a wrong approach. So what I need to do is that if Khokhar Saab has been to Karachi, I'll ask Khokhar Saab, Karachi jana hai, kaise jaun? So I think that's exactly what my point is over here. Do you think that we have that preparedness amongst us if we are to talk about industrialization, economic zones coming up, you know, vocational training, children being ready to kind of work in those economic zones? Are we there? Do we have the right mindset?
Shahzad, before going to the Karachi, we need to have, where is the Karachi? If the Karachi is the north and we are starting on the south, we will not reach to the Karachi. So the issue is the government has to set the directions, and the direction is now, I believe now we have the clear direction. The direction is we need to have a prosperous Pakistan, we need to have a stable Pakistan, we need to have a bright Pakistan, and we need to have a Pakistan where the people who are around 60% of our population in between the 23 and the 30.
And sir, very quickly, I would like to contribute over here, and because, you know, it's 100% authentic, so I would want to share it that in the previous government, unfortunately, the exports dropped to $1 billion if you are to speak about Gwadar. And then, you know, within this stint of 1 year, of this government, ladies and gentlemen, they've gone up to or risen up to $6 billion. So there's a lot which has been done.
Yeah,
Sir, please.
and it is talking about the foreign direct investment, because we have been declining around $1 billion or less than $1 billion, but now for the last 6 months it is accelerating, and especially the China is a big investor in Pakistan. So Shahzad, we need to have a direction, and direction is that the economy should be streamlined, and the most important thing are the governance system. If some investor in Pakistan and he needs to interact with our bureaucrats or other leaders, so they need to have a message that there is a transparency in our system. They need to have, there is a time bounded system in Pakistan, and you look and if you visit our ministries, they have wonderful ideas and they have many showcase projects over there. But why the people are not coming to Pakistan? If we talk about that we have a very good geographic locations, we talk about we have abundant resources, the human resources, it is another area, and the people around the world, they are in the minus and we are increasing over it, and more than 60% of our population, it is a young population, which is a lifeline of any manufacturing country.
Fifth largest country in terms of population.
Fifth largest country in terms of the population, and in the top two about the genius attitude. Wherever the Pakistanis will go, even they go the UK, the USA, around ever, they succeed and they try hard. So we need to change on the both sides. In the front side, we need to have the positive attitude. We need to have the positivity of society. We need to have the market of society. If for the sake of argument we have the negativity in our system and we have negativity positing on our television, who will come to Pakistan? So the main thing, we need to change the optics, and the optics would be that the Pakistan is a different state. And the most important thing, another area, we should not involve in the geopolitics situation. If we see about the neighbors, India, he has a strategic relationship with USA, but he is buying the oil from Iran and the Russia, and he is supporting. And even you can say he never supported the on Ukraine issue against the Russia. So they are making their orders. Another area which is very important is the Gulf state, the Saudis again, the pledging. And I think the missing point was the coordination between, we have the 3 tiers, the federal government, the provincial government, the local government, and now the government has shown the seriousness. Some legislation have been made in the BOI, they made the SIFC, now the military establishment, the Pakistani the leadership, they are there, and now they are pledging $100 billion US, the ambitious investment in Pakistan, and they will do on it because they have the certain products. We have the agriculture, we can invest over there, the Chinese are over there, the overseas Pakistanis, it's a big chunk of overseas Pakistanis, they have the money, they want to invest in Pakistan. So we need to have the conducive environment, we need to go on the ease of doing business over there, we need to have the public awareness over there, and we need to, most important area is we highlight the areas of the special areas, like the South Koreans have done it. This is the area of Islamabad, this is his special area, this is the Balochistan, this is the mine and minerals, this is the tourism area, Gilgit-Baltistan, this is the Punjab, you can go on the agriculture side, and this is the Karachi, you can re-export to the things over there. So these have to be marketed nationally and internationally, and whosoever government would be. Now there should be resolved the charter of governance, the charter of the justice, another important area. The people are not coming to Pakistan because we have a weak judicial system over there, we have a weak administrative justice system. So if you go, there are frequent change of government in Italy and Japan, but they are progressing. The politics should be another issue. It is another domain.
Development of the countries,
the human development. And another area is we need to the transform, and we need to educate the technical education for our people.
Thank you.
This is the most important area you have highlighted. We need to have these youngsters in our economic zones. Now Austria and so many countries, they are in demand to have the technical people. So we need to full accelerate our technical people instead of the formal education, prepare for them, and ask the international investors whosoever you would be required. And in that area, if they require in the energy, we need to produce the good energy people over here, the technical people over here.
And continuity of the system is very much important, which I deduced from your entire conversation, and I think that's very important. That's why you mentioned no matter if the governments change, the system remains there, and that is how the countries progress in the first place.
And you can see the seriousness. In the last 2-3 weeks, we have a very good legislation in terms of the economic matters in Pakistan. So that is showing
so we're in the right direction.
That is showing if we want to do something, we can do it.
That's very true.
yeah.
And now, Zamisa, moving on to you, and especially when we talk about the continuity of the system, and it's very much important that we highlight that how CPEC has improved the local livelihoods of the people a lot, right? Because it was a project, it's a project consisting of the ports, railways, airports, infrastructure, connectivity, whatnot, right? So how do you believe we need to have further conversation, especially when we are talking about celebrating a decade of CPEC, of Pakistan and China friendship relationship in that direction, and especially considering the fact that when our Pakistani state is focusing on the human-centric security, right, improving the well-being of the people in general, and where does CPEC fulfills in?
The objective of all these efforts is to make Pakistan a strong country, make the people of Pakistan a happy life and the richer people. And of course, we can quote the Chinese example. China started its reforms in 1980s, and they started from the low-tech, agriculture-based and labor-intensive industry. And they started to change the livelihood of the common people, the small and the cottage industry from this start. And then they moved to the small and medium-sized industry, and now they have entered into the high-tech industry.
True.
Right.
Pakistan can learn a lot of things from the China. In Pakistan, the most important thing that we have the family system. One person is earning and is 6 or 7 dependent are eating food, and we have to strengthen the grassroots level of economic activities, that is the cottage industry, small industry, medium-sized industry, and these can be make it happen with the right policies, with the incentive-based policies, and the Chinese are there to help in every stage. Of course, the mega industry, the big industries, of course, are more helpful, but we should also equally focus on the small and medium-sized industries.
Right.
Pakistan has a immense potential of human resource, but we need to train them, we need to make them more efficient. It is not only the labor cost, it is the matter of their technical skills and the efficiency also.
And sir, in addition to that, since I have had a background of having industry ourselves, alhamdulillah, so Allah has been very kind. So we used to make sports socks, you know, so may it be any international brand I'm going to name it, may it be Nike, may it be Slazenger, Puma. And then there was this time when, you know, China actually maximized its production facility, and, you know, a lot of people moved the industry not just to China but to other countries from over here, because we certainly didn't have the electricity resources over here. So imagine what happened was that we were unfortunately pushed to kind of shut it down, because imagine that if a pair we were producing it in 17 Pakistani rupees, you know, if the same pair you can get from China in 13 rupees as well. So how do you think that we have an alternate to that? You know,
yes, that's
do you think
true.
that there's another alternate to that?
Yes. You see how the China has transformed into high tech.
True.
They have invited the foreign entrepreneurs to invest in China.
True.
Whenever a foreign investor comes, he always bring the high tech, the latest technology, the latest product, and the of course the latest techniques also. They
अब सर घरों के बिल इतने आ रहे हैं जितने कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री में आते होते थे बिल.
they have engaged the foreigners in the joint ventures. Initially, China has joint venture with all garment manufacturers of the world famous brands.
Yes.
And they got this skill.
True.
They got the joint venture with all automobiles of the world class automobiles manufacturers.
Yeah.
And they got the skill and technology. They have trained their own people. Now they are producing their own brands. And now China is the leader in the automobile industry. These are the ways. We need to be patient. We need to move slowly. We need to focus our direction, and we should work hard and sustainable work.
And thank
uninterrupted
you,
hard
and
work.
thank you so much for saying that, because I think that, you know, today is the time, ladies and gentlemen, where we certainly need to speak about meritocracy being ensured. And there's a reason why I'm saying
Shahzad, I'm sorry I'm cutting you, but I really wanted to put across one point which is very much important. That is that China spended a lot in bringing back the skilled labor which left the country because of the brain drain in the first place. And I think if we want to look at the China and their integration model and how bringing back the Chinese skilled labor which left the West, they brought them back and made sure that they work on them. And especially when we talk about the CPEC, and especially when we talk about that we need skilled labor in order to have that accelerated phase of the industrialization, I think it's very much important. We have to learn a lot from that model of Chinese integration, and because of the fact that we had a lot of brain drain in the first place.
Thank you so much for saying that. And Haja, it's a wonderful point. There's a reason why I'm going to allude to this one. And that is that imagine that if you are to talk about Pakistan, I must appreciate over here that, for all of those projects which have been undertaken in the last 10 years, may it be the metro, may it be from Khunjrab to Karachi, you can still travel, may it be electricity shortages, may it be anything, ladies and gentlemen, may it be dams.
True.
And unfortunately, not just COVID, imagine that the losses we have faced in terms of these natural disasters which have been taking place, may it be floods. And Pakistan has always made sure, and the Pakistani government has always made sure that we're going to be back on track. Alhamdulillah, that's fine, and we're on top of it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to allude to over here is that back in 1960s and 1970s, people from Mercedes came down to Pakistan that we wanted to have a plant of our cars over here. Unfortunately, they weren't able to give them that access, number one. Number two, if China was able to attract all of those people, where there was brain drain, it was because of the fact that Apple came down to China. All of these bigger industries came down to China, and they gave them that environment which will allow them to produce and then send their product to all over the rest of the world and still make profit. And that's exactly one thing which we had to make sure that we are going to provide them with that environment which is going to allow them to do what they want to do at their best. Sir.
Shahzad, you talk about the 1960s, 58 and the 68, 10 years decade was a prime period for Pakistan, and there was a GDP growth of 5.8. And then from 68 to 71, there was a crisis. And then we shifted from the nationalization. That was a big setback for them. So another area now, the important area is from the lighter side, the two areas, ease of doing business and the cost of production is very important. Investment will not come if you don't work on the cost of doing business and the ease of doing business. And simultaneously, if we have a big projects in dollars in Pakistan, and we are the dollar lovers country and euro lovers country, so we need to give the salaries to our employees, whosoever would be in the dollar terms, so they will be satisfied that we are receiving the dollars in Pakistan, and there will be no big crisis like the Greece boat outside Pakistan.
Future in the place, but thank
because
you so much.
Because sir is charging in dollars these days.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming here.
You talk about the big project in dollars, it's a $1.4 billion, it's a $500 million. So if you talk about the dollars, so in other way, it will be a way, there will be no blockade of dollars in our houses and homes.
Exactly, and that's certainly how we need to do it. I think even now, if somebody asks me, sir, if you're going to host this event, I'm like, okay, how many dollars are you going to pay me? But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a wonderful occasion over here.
While converting the dollars into the rupees.
I don't know, if that's the taste everybody wants to get, but ladies and gentlemen, towards the end, it's a wonderful day over here to have the Chinese Vice Premier, over here in Pakistan celebrating 10 years of CPEC. And inshallah, we have a lot of Bye.